Howdy my totally as always Tubular gamers. We're back with another video. Let's get to it. Today we're going to be talking about some off-roading games. Hell yeah! So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Mudrunner games and the adjacent titles, including the latest title, RoadCraft. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Mudrunner series, it is a series of games that primarily center around off-roading simulation. Developed primarily by Saber Interactive, this series has really taken the mud, dirt, and grass world by storm, and at this point has really carved out its own little niche. Sure, there have been trucking and off-roading games before and after the Mudrunner series, but none of them really hit like the Mudrunner games. Now, most driving games are all about sticking to the road and going as fast as possible. In this series, yeah, there really is no road. Occasionally you'll find some, but for the most part, you're going through the shittiest of environments, and you're really in a constant struggle with Mother Nature. And you're usually hauling something really heavy. Now, for the uninitiated, the series actually got started back in 2014 with this small indie PC-only release known as Spintires. It saw you driving these heavy, big-ass trucks through the thickest of mud. Then in 2017, Saber Interactive would develop the second title in this series, Spintires Mudrunner, but the series would be rebranded to just Mudrunner going forward. And this game was essentially more of the same. And then in 2020, we would get the third entry known as SnowRunner, which, as the title implies, would bring snow into the equation. And then in 2024, we would get something a little different. We would get Expeditions, a Mudrunner game, which centered more on exploring the unknown rather than hauling heavy shit. But here in 2025, we've actually gotten a new Mudrunner title, a spin-off titled RoadCraft, which is all about, as you might have guessed, crafting roads and making the environment more drivable. And so with that little overview, we're going to be ranking all 5 of these games from worst to best. I'm going to be giving each one of these a review, sharing my thoughts, feelings, memories, etc., stacking these games up against each other and seeing which ones are worth playing. We might be here for a minute, so get the Wendy's spicy nuggets, get the popcorn, get the beef jerky, start the car up, start going to bed, however you're going to watch or listen to this video. I got a lot to say. Yes, I got a lot to say even about the off-roading simulators. What can I say? I love every type of game, and I've been really enjoying RoadCraft, so I thought I would make an updated ranking. And so, let's get into it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Got the Patreon and the super thanks. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. Major shout out to Focus Entertainment for hooking me up with a review code for RoadCraft. Very cool indeed. And so with that, let's begin with our first game. What's the weakest in this series? While certainly not a bad game, I think the weakest game in this series is the original, Spintires, releasing initially in 2014, and it really shows that this franchise really had humble beginnings, and it's really great to see how far this entire series has come. While I think the original Spintires is still a good game, I would say all of the subsequent Mudrunner games really do improve on this original game and are better than the original. It's only gone up from here, but again, I think this is a good game. So what even is Spintires? How is it different from Mudrunners? Well, the game isn't actually all that different from later Mudrunner games. They really established the formula, really established a subgenre right here with this original game. You're dropped into this rather thick and dense open world. You'll take control of these off-roading vehicles, and usually you'll have to drive them through muddy off-road terrain, and you'll be transporting cargo. That really is the main objective of this game, is to transport stuff from point A to point B. And while that might sound relatively boring or simplistic, there's more going on under the hood than you'd imagine. Pun intended. See, you aren't just driving on like highways or streets or roads or through suburbs or anything like that. No. What you're driving on in this game is muddy, unpaved dirt. That is the terrain you have to deal with, and driving through this is nowhere near as simple as driving on asphalt or concrete or anything smooth. It is slow, it is tedious, it takes a while, and at times it feels like it really is never straightforward. Getting from point A to B can be much more of a challenge than it seems, especially when the mud starts getting really thick. Something that really does need to be taken into consideration while driving in this game is the game's physics. The physics are not messing around, they can be pretty relentless, are decently realistic, and just unforgiving. You also have to think about the mud especially with how deep it can actually get. Terrain deformation in general is something you have to think about, how it messes with your controls, the physics, and even if it's day or night. Like, all of this needs to be taken into consideration before you go to your objective. You really can't just expect to drive forward and get through this game or do the occasional turn. You really actually have to take this shit seriously, and I was thrown off by it at first. I was just trying to play this game like really any other driving game and quickly found myself just sinking in the mud and honestly not having a great time with it. It's only after a little bit I realized, no, you have to take your time with it. You need to be patient, and you really do need to take into consideration all the factors I mentioned. I mean, there's also your resources. You don't have to just worry about the mud. There's actually other resources here, like your vehicle getting damaged. You have to worry about fuel, and this isn't some easy peasy game where, you know, you run out, it's not that big of a deal. No, you are fucked if you run out of fuel or your vehicle just breaks too much. You have to start the run over, and believe me, it sucks. But if you make it to your destination, you were able to get through all the mud and challenging terrain, it is pretty rewarding. And as you play through the game, I feel like it does get a bit easier. You really understand how your vehicle behaves in the mud and different terrains, and you just really get better at navigating this world. When it comes to this game's presentation, it is pretty clear that it is a budget indie game. It doesn't look amazing, but for 2014, you know, it looks alright. At least the mud does look pretty good. The mud looks good in all of these games. But at the very least, I can appreciate the detail that this game has in its world. I mean, it doesn't have the largest map, but it is very dense, and you still can have some fun with this game. There are certain aspects that have certainly aged, especially if you played the other Mudrunner games. The user interface is a bit slow and wonky. The whole game feels a lot more manual than some of the later games, and some of the runs take quite a bit of time. Additionally, while I think the physics are good, they certainly have improved in later games. The controls in general have improved in later games, and if you're coming back to this game after playing some of the later ones, you might have some issues here. But at the end of the day, would I recommend this game? Probably not. While I do think it is a somewhat enjoyable time, I really do think you should just go play the other Mudrunner games, and also the game has been delisted from Steam, so the only way to get it is through more dubious methods. But it is great to see where the series got started, and it's always a good thing when I think the weakest game in the series was the first one. That just means that it's gotten better and better as time has gone on, and that's definitely this series. And so here we have Expedition, a Mudrunner game, releasing in 2024. Now, over the last year or so, I have put a decent amount of time into this game, and while I do think it is good and there is plenty of enjoyment to be had with it, I've come to realize that I enjoy other Mudrunner games more than this one. The game is actually rather different from Mud and SnowRunner, especially when it comes to the premise. Rather than being focused on hauling heavy cargo, it instead focuses on exploring the unknown and going on these expeditions. And the expeditions aren't just move cargo from A to B. Sometimes you'll be moving cargo, but a majority of the time you're investigating areas, seeing what's out there, finding interesting locations or rock formations. You even get to track seismic activity. There's a couple different things going on here, and I can appreciate that they're trying something different here. The previous 3 games really were all about just moving cargo, and so it's nice that, yeah, they're mixing it up a little and you get some different objectives. But do I think the core gameplay is better than SnowRunner? Well, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now, when it comes to the driving and the physics in this game, it is incredibly similar to SnowRunner. If you played SnowRunner at all, you will feel very at home here. The physics are very tight, heavy, slow, methodical, realistic, and can be just as punishing as the prior game. The game has no problem letting your truck flip over and you just being screwed. The general feel and driving of this game is just as realistic and simulation based as the prior games, and you'll never find yourself really going fast or anything like that. But what you have to contend with instead is the harsh environments. This game has some different environments from the previous games. There's no snow here. You actually have 2 deserts and then a foresty area, and you guessed it, a lot of mud. There's 0 paved roads in this game, and you'll find yourself climbing mountains, bobbing and weaving through forests, and trying to drive through rivers and lakes. The environments are just as rough as the previous games, if not even more rough. Climbing mountains in this game is really no joke in this game. There are plenty of times in Mudrunner or SnowRunner where, you know, you go up a hill, you go up a mountain, but climbing stuff in this game is just very different from the prior games. You can actually mess with the tire pressure, allowing you to really climb up on stuff, and it feels like a mountain climbing game. If you played Jasant from last year, it's kind of like that, but in a car. Maybe that was a rough, reductive comparison, but you'll do plenty of mountain climbing climbing. It's what you're really doing a majority of this game is climbing hills, more so than anything else it feels like. But when you finally do make it to the top, especially after several minutes of climbing, it is rather rewarding. The game, when it comes to its pacing, it's just as relaxing. You know, you can just sit back, chill for a good 30-40 minutes, go on an expedition where you climb a few mountains and have a nice time. But the game is still just as challenging as the previous games. You can very, very easily fuck up your vehicle to the point that it's not even operational. You very easily can tip it over, you can get it stuck in a river. There are so many ways you can just get your truck screwed over, but this game actually does have an inventory system. You can bring stuff along with you, and a few of these tools are really helpful. One of them actually lets you respawn in the area rather than having to take it all the way back to the base. You can bring fuel with you, a spare tire if one of them gets fucked, and I think it's a pretty cool addition. It certainly makes the game more accessible without really hampering the difficulty. I mean, you have to plan out your expedition, like how long is it going to take, what kind of terrain am I going through, what kind of vehicle do I want to bring, what items. I like that. It adds a little bit more strategy to it, and also means the game isn't overly punishing when I decide to try to take a shortcut and get my truck stuck in a way that I can't get it out or have nothing to winch to. That's another item they introduce here, anchors. You can just place down an anchor and winch to it. The winch in general is a lot stronger and goes a lot further than the previous game, and so I found myself winching decently frequently. Another big part of the gameplay really is the exploring part. While you do get the main mission, the expedition to go do something, you can freely just drive around. You'll actually come across other side objectives you can do, and you'll actually find a bunch of little secrets if you explore around stuff like upgrade parts. Yes, you can upgrade your trucks, you can customize them. The customization is probably the best of the entire franchise, and I found plenty of little goodies just by searching around. I think the game has a decent sense of exploration, and going off the beaten path, it's a good time, and I think the game looks nice. The trucks are also incredibly well detailed. The music though, yeah, just as forgettable as the other games. Now, with everything I've said, do I think this is the best of the Mudrunners games? Can I recommend it? Well, I can recommend it, especially if you like the previous games, but I don't think it's the very best of the Mudrunner games. See, this game does a few things that I'm not huge on. While I can appreciate that it does something different than just moving cargo, I don't think the gameplay loop is ever as strong as moving the cargo. Going on the expeditions, exploring, finding the caches, or tracking the seismic activity is fun, but I don't ever think it was as strong as moving the cargo. You also do a bunch of little events, these like mini games, these quick time events, and I don't like these at all. They actually feel incredibly out of place for a game like this, and I kind of get why they're here. Each of the expeditions does have like a little bit of a narrative complete with characters and everything, but I just didn't care for any of these mini games and was like, get this over with immediately. I kind of like some of the tools like the drone or bringing the spare parts so you can fix your car on the fly or fix up other cars or build bridges. I thought that was cool, but some of these tools I just did not really like using. Like where you have to investigate the water. Every time I did this, I was just like, why am I doing this? Why is this here? This seems just really, again, out of place and unnecessary, but I mean, I guess it adds variety. But yeah, I didn't care for these. And then there's also a few things that I think SnowRunner just did a little better than this game. For instance, the free roam, while it is decent in this game, I don't like that you have to unlock it. And I think the free roam was actually kind of better in SnowRunner, especially since you could have multiple trucks out at once and jump between them. Also, the interface was just straight up better in SnowRunner. Here, it's just kind of a mess at times, and I don't like all the menus in menus. You also get to hire people to help you with these expeditions, but I never thought this actually added anything to the game, and it just kind of felt like another box I had to tick rather than enhancing the gameplay in any meaningful way. The gameplay is still good. I still had a great time playing this game, and it's got plenty of merit to it. The driving and physics are more than solid enough. It's just, yeah, there's a few things that hold this game back for me. I still very much do recommend it, and I can appreciate that they really tried to do something different. They could have easily had another game where you just haul heavy shit, but no, they actually really tried to create something genuinely unique and different here, and I think it pays off for the most part. I've heard plenty of people say that this should have just been a SnowRunner DLC, but I disagree. I think the game's able to stand on its own, and it has its own identity. It's only gotten better with updates in time, and if you're looking for something genuinely different, even from the other Mudrunner games, I think it's worth checking out. And here we have RoadCraft releasing here in 2025. Again, I do want to give a shout out to Focus for hooking me up with a review code. I very much do appreciate it. Now, Even though this game doesn't have the Mudrunner name in it, it still is very much adjacent to the Mudrunner series, and I would say that this is more of a spin-off than anything else, and it goes for something very different. The game is all about managing construction operations in areas that were previously just totaled by natural disasters. It sees you, the player, actually managing an entire construction company specializing in natural disaster recovery, and it'll see you go to a number of different areas just trying to bring some life back to these areas. All of these areas were totaled for one reason or another: floods, landslides, earthquakes, hurricanes, you name it, just generally natural disasters. But bringing these locations back to life is going to require quite a bit of help, particularly when it comes to vehicles. You still are operating heavy vehicles 95% of the time, but instead of hauling things from point A to B or going off to explore the unknown, it's all about infrastructure repair and just general reconstruction. This is more of a construction sim really than anything else. There's over 40 different heavy-ass vehicles you get to operate here, and all of them serve some kind of purpose. While there are some familiar faces like the good old Scout and the classic cargo truck, there's also a bunch of new vehicles that have never shown up in any of Saber's driving games. There's cranes you get to operate now. There's a number of different dump trucks you actually get to drive. There's asphalt pavers, there's a few dozers that you get to operate, there's some tree harvesters, cable layers, and of course a concrete mixer. Yeah, there's a number of different vehicles you get to operate in this game, and they all actually behave quite differently. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they all have some kind of utility. You'll find yourself using every type of vehicle if you want to bring some of these environments back. For instance, there'll be tons of debris all over these paths, and you're going to have to come in with a dozer and push them out of the way. An area might be just completely flooded. You can't get any vehicles through that. Well, you're going to have to go in with a dump truck and pour some sand down. And maybe you don't want some dirt path either. You want to turn that shit into a road. You're going to have to lay some asphalt down, crush it down, and you can actually make a pretty nice looking road here. Sure, from time to time you'll have to transport materials from point A to B, and it can be kinda like Mudrunner, but these missions really are few and far between. Sometimes you'll have to reconstruct an entire bridge, and so you'll need to get the materials together, you'll need to get everything loaded into a cargo truck, and you'll have to bring it to the area where you're trying to build the bridge. And it's not automatically done either. You're going to need to get a crane and load it into the truck legit one by one. And yeah, it's as tedious as it sounds. This is a very slow game, even when compared to the other games. But then again, you are doing construction. You can't really be fast with this. It's all about taking your time. It's all about being precise and accurate and ensuring the best possible job. But you aren't totally alone here. Not only can you play with up to 4 players, which makes the construction a hell of a lot faster, but you can actually automate certain tasks as well. You can actually have NPCs transport and deliver materials for you, but you will have to make their route, and you got to make sure that route is as clean as it gets. Even though you're okay with sitting in the mud for 3 minutes to try to get through an area, the AI is not going to try to do that. You're going to have to make a very smooth road that allows them to get from point A to B relatively quickly and easily. And yeah, while there is a degree of babysitting to this, I actually like this concept. I like clearing the roads, I like making everything more drivable, and I think this game actually has some really great different gameplay loops to it. I was actually kind of surprised with how much fun I was having with RoadCraft, clearing debris, fixing pipes, laying some road down, bringing electricity back to an area. It's actually a good time for the most part. Damn it, I'm stuck again.
I feel like if we were a real company, they'd fire us for this.
Yes, it is a rather slow-paced game, but all of these games are rather slow-paced. You're going to need some patience with this, and you really are going to have to take your time with everything in this game. Most video games, when you need to repair something, you usually just push a button and that's it. That is not this game. That is the opposite of this game. Everything has multiple steps and takes several minutes, if not a dozen, in order to be repaired. And I won't lie, it takes a while for everything to really click. The game's got quite a bit of a learning curve. Not only do a majority of these vehicles have somewhat different control schemes, but they all do genuinely very different things from one another, and remembering what everything does, it took me a minute, but once it all came together, oh, it was great. great. I was really enjoying how much variety there was and how much of a difference it feels like you're making in these environments. When you first start on a lot of these maps, they are just completely ravaged, destroyed. Like, you can barely get a vehicle through some of these places, but by the time you're done with these locations, it's almost completely unrecognizable. And I think it's actually really satisfying. I think it does come together, and I very much think that's what Saber was going for here. This really is, in a sense, like the ultimate construction game. It's not overly complicated and complex, but it also has some depth and nuance to it. It's not overly simple, and all the construction isn't done with just a few buttons. And it creates one of the most unique experiences I've had with a game in the last few years. And this is coming from somebody who's played all the Mudrunner games. It's really different. And it's also a pretty good looking game. You gotta remember, this is a AA game, and I think these environments are stunning. The lighting is great and the vehicles are well detailed also. The presentation is just good through and through. And I think that there's a lot of fun to be had here. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I've had my fair share of bugs and glitches. The physics have gone crazy from time to time. I think the sand is just a little too powerful in this game. It kind of trivializes a lot of the environments. And I won't lie, at times the pacing is just a little too slow, even for this style of game. Like when you're waiting for the AI to complete a route or when you're using one of the really slow cranes. But still, I think the game is enjoyable and a good time. But to finish things off here, I will say I have seen a number of people really set themselves up for disappointment with this game. They buy this game thinking it's the next hardcore experience like SnowRunner, like Expedition, and this game is not that. It doesn't have fuel, your vehicles don't take damage, it's nowhere near as difficult or punishing as any of the prior games, but that's also not the focus. The focus is on restoring these environments, not being a hardcore off-roading sim. And so if you go into this game expecting that, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. So instead of focusing on what the game doesn't have, let's look at what it does have, and that's some pretty good construction. This game gets a thumbs up and a recommendation from me. And so here we have Mudrunner, which initially released in 2017. I think this game is a pretty decent improvement on the foundation that Spintires laid down, and the game certainly got a bit more attention. The game was not developed by a small indie studio, but rather Saber Interactive. It was also available on plenty of other platforms rather than just PC, and it feels like this game is a much higher budget than the previous game. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the game fun? Is driving through the mud still a good time? Oh yeah, it's still a good time here. When it comes to the core gameplay and how the game is set up, it is very similar to Spintires. The game still is an all-terrain simulation game where you'll be driving through plenty of different environments. You're still dropped into a very dense open world and told to move things from point A to B. When it comes to the driving itself, it is just as much of a simulation as the previous game. You are not going fast in this game. Speed is really something you don't get in any of these games, but yeah, you won't ever get a sense of speed. It is very serious with its driving. The physics are rather realistic. The controls are very slow, heavy, methodical, and somewhat realistic. I mean, you gotta take the parking brake off. You gotta make sure you're in all-wheel drive. There's even a differential lock. Like, it's not messing around when it comes to driving. But the driving, it does feel nice in this game. It feels better than it did in Spintires. Spintires can feel a bit loose at times. Here, it certainly feels better. If you're coming from SnowRunner, it's not gonna feel as nice, but the driving and physics, I thought, were relatively good. But a lot of this game is driving through the mud, just like the previous game. You go through a bunch of shitty environments in this game. The map is actually a lot more detailed than the previous one, and there's a lot of different environments that Spintires did not have. While there are some paved roads, most of the game you really are off-road, and you'll be in the mud, you'll be driving through rivers and water bodies. There's tons of different trails. You'll actually have to deal with elevation here, going up and down hills, and this is a lot harder than it sounds. Trust me, elevation is something that you really have to worry about. While you're transporting cargo, you do have to worry about your resources. You can run out of fuel. You probably will run out of fuel if you don't plan correctly, and you can damage the vehicle or the cargo to the point that you do have to start over. And just like the previous game, if you run out, it sucks. But if you do finish the run and you get paid and all of that, it can be decently rewarding. You can customize and upgrade the trucks as well. There's a lot more trucks in this game than the previous game. The previous game had a good amount, but this game, yeah, it's much better. There's also a ton of DLC. And while on that note, I will say this game has a hell of a lot more content than Spintires. Spintires had a good amount, but Mudrunners really has a lot to it. in terms of content. Like the base game had quite a bit, but the DLCs over the years actually do add a lot. And you're looking at well over 100 hours if you want to do even a majority of these runs. On top of that, there's actually 2 difficulty modes for all of these runs. There's a casual and hardcore difficulty. I never tried the hardcore one. I was too chicken shit to try it. This game already is challenging enough as it is. I don't need it to go any further. There's actually this whole point system that's been implemented when it comes to the game's completion that I think is rather cool, and there's a lot of content. You'll be playing this game a long time if you really get into it. I'm sure there are plenty of people that have tried this game for like an hour and went, nope, this game's too slow, it's boring, it's not for me. But I know there are just as many people who went, wow, this is really different. I like that it's slow. I like the pacing. It's relaxing. It's chill. You just drive through the mud. I like that the game is decently challenging, and have put in well over 100 hours into this game and love the shit out of it. And while I haven't put a ton of time into this game, I still have put in enough to really appreciate what this game is trying to do. It's going for a very different experience, and it really does enhance what Spintires had. It's more accessible. Without really compromising on the difficulty, it does streamline a few things. The menus are better. Stuff like winching is a lot easier than it was in the prior game. I like the variety this game adds over Spintires. I like some of the new elements. I like how many different trucks there are. And I really do think it's just a better game in general. When it comes to the presentation, yeah, it is a bit better. It looks nice. The environments look good. The mud looks great. And the trucks are very well detailed. I can appreciate the presentation. I wish the music was better though. I kind of wish the music was better for like all of these games. I don't know, it just feels really generic and it's just kind of there. Part of me feels like they expect you to just turn the sound off and listen to a podcast or a video or talk to somebody, and I usually did one of those 3 while playing these games since they are relatively chill. And the last thing to mention is, if you need even more content with this game, there is a separate challenge mode that I have not tried, but it exists. If you want even more to this game, there's plenty. The game really does offer so much content. If you like the game's got plenty of stuff for you to do. And nowadays the game is dirt cheap, so if you're looking for a fun, slow off-roading game where you move logs all over the place, oh, this might be the game for you. I know that's pretty niche, but it might be the game for you. But then we have SnowRunner initially releasing in 2020. Not only do I think this is the best of the entire Mudrunner series, but this is arguably the best off-roading simulator like ever made. I still remember the first time I played this game. I was somewhat familiar with this series, but I actually put a good amount of time into it and took a step back and just went, wow, I can't believe I'm having this much fun with this. The really slow trucking game where you drive through the mud and move stuff, I'm having this good of a time with it. Oh yeah, this game isn't messing around. It's clearly not for everybody and it only appeals to a certain type of person, but SnowRunners, oh, this game, when it hooks you good. When it comes to the premise, it's very similar to Mudrunner, where you're dropped into this very dense open world and are just told to just move cargo. You can take on a bunch of contracts, you can do the main jobs, fix bridges, move logs, move other trucks. You'll be moving a lot of stuff in this game. You can actually attach a bunch of stuff to your truck to help you move stuff along like a crane. The point I'm trying to make here is you're hauling shit. That really is the objective of this game, and it is so much fun. It is actually a lot of fun in this game when it comes to the driving and the physics and the feel. It is very similar to Mudrunner. It is certainly refined and feels nicer. The physics are a lot more refined as well. There won't be some instances where just weird shit happens or you bounce somewhere. Like, it feels very nice, and I do enjoy the physics and just the feel of this game. The driving, it feels good. I like how realistic it is. I like just how satisfying it can be when you conquer that pit of mud or you climb over that hill. Like, it's a really fun time and you're just like, I got past it. It feels nice. Very few games have been able to capture this feeling of driving up this hill, this unstoppable force, and Expeditions has that too, but man, something about SnowRunners, it just hits different. Or being able to ford that river or driving through the snow. Speaking of, it's in the name, but this game has a lot of snow. There's 3 areas to the base game, and you'll notice immediately all of them have been hit by some kind of natural disaster, and so you'll be helping them out, but there's 3 very distinct different areas from each other, and all of them are very dense. You can actually explore around in each one of them as well. And I think the free roam is very strong in this game. I like just driving around and then finding some quick little contract, doing it, and then going back to free roam. You can have multiple trucks on the map at once if you want to switch between them, or you've got one on the other end of the map versus one at the garage. And I think all of this really just creates a very satisfying game loop. As you continue through the game and get a bunch of money, you can upgrade your trucks, you can buy new ones, and I think this is very cool as well. And it will never not be satisfying to come back to the early areas that gave you a ton of trouble where you were stuck in the mud for minutes on end, you come back with this beefed up super truck, upgraded wheels, the whole works, and you just drive through it like it's nothing, man. That was a really satisfying moment, and that was one of the times where it clicked with me and I went, this game is hella good. It's different, it's addictive, it's slow, it's engaging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. When you do one of those long ass cargo runs, oh, it's incredibly rewarding, managing your resources and planning everything out perfectly, going through the areas you know your truck can go through. When it all comes together, it just works and it's fun. And then the game has plenty, and I mean plenty of content. You're looking at easy 80 to 100 hours from just the base game. There's a ton of DLC that is actually very substantial. Like, there's a reason when people get hooked into this game, they really get hooked into this game. I obviously haven't put 50 to 100 hours into this game. I put a decent amount of time. I put more time into SnowRunner than any of these other games, and it's my favorite of these games. It's also the only other one that I've played multiplayer with, and the multiplayer is actually pretty cool. You can haul stuff together, you can winch off each other. The multiplayer was way more fun than I thought it would be. Maybe I was just playing with the right person, but the multiplayer is good.
I'm not fucking around. Oh!
When it comes to this game's presentation, I still think the game looks pretty decent. It doesn't look as good as Expeditions, but the environments are still nice, the trucks are well detailed, and it's nice on the eyes. It's a good looking game. In conclusion, I can see why so many people fell in love with this game. I have no problem recommending it. I recommend this game more than any other game I've talked about today. It is available on Game Pass, that's how I tried it, and I can say without a doubt in my mind that SnowRunners, it really is one of the best driving games of all time. I know that might seem silly, but the game really is actually hella good. Sure, it doesn't have a sense of speed. In fact, this game is like the opposite of speed, and you don't go through some flashy, crazy city, and there's not all these insane, crazy set pieces that are really memorable. No, you're hauling shit. That's the entire game. But the game is a fun, challenging, quality gameplay loop that will keep you hooked for hours and hours on end. Alright though, I wanted to wait till the end of the video to say it. I've been thinking it this entire time. SnowRunner really is the Dark Souls of the driving games. I'm sorry, it just had to be said. I don't make the rules here. But anyway, that's really it for today's video. It's clear all these years later, SnowRunner is still the GOAT, it can't be beat, and really is the pinnacle of this entire series. And that's going to be today's code word, something completely different. We're going with pinnacle. That means you made it to the end. That means you heard me talk about SnowRunner. I hope you all enjoyed it. Are you getting RoadCraft? Have you been enjoying it? Let me know down below. Maybe you're just waiting for it to hit Game Pass. Either way, I hope you all have a fantastic day. See y'all later. Bye-bye now.